talk about Jamie start of the week, and I would say hard hitting news, particularly those who are in Microsoft. There were some layoffs, but what is interesting that we're going to talk about today is how is that related to AI or is it not?
Yeah, and speaking of news, other than the layoffs, there's some I'll call some pretty big shifts, not only within OpenAI. Late breaking, we're recording this on Friday, July 10th, but as of yesterday, July 9th, there's some interesting new announcements that correlate to Codex, new models. We'll talk all about that. Plus, AWS is putting some of its business on hold. Cliffhanger. We'll talk about what that is.
Yeah, and the bunch of models that came out, not just what you're going to talk about from GPT 5.6, but also a bunch of models from Meta Image, Meta Spark 1.1, etc. And in fact, some more other models also came out from Mistral, but we'll focus on some of those frontier models.
Yep. And as always, we'll talk about infrastructure, how it's colliding with the physical world, data centers, demand pressures there. We'll talk about that as well as overall trust in the AI layer, what that means from a government models approval, copyright discovery disputes, and ways that I'll call it nefarious actors are using prompt injection techniques or attacks, and some subtle hallucination ways as well. So we'll cover that in this week's episode.
That and more. Stay tuned. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
All right, Jimmy. So I don't want to start like with a gloomy news, but the reality is that there is a layoff that happened at Microsoft. Everybody knows about it because those are generally the big news. 4,800 roles, about 2.1% of the global workforce was eliminated on Monday this week. Now, to all our audience, Jamie and I are fine here. Doesn't mean, but however, there was actually an interesting study that I read somewhere. Every layoff person, right? One person who gets laid off, it actually impacts 2, 3 other people who are not directly laid off, but it impacts them, right? That impact could be in any measure. It could be productivity or motivation, losing or on being depressed, whatever it is. So layoffs generally have pretty wide impact. It's not just the direct count that matters. So of course, I think everybody can speak from their own experience on that one. But anyway, coming back, so why is this important? Why we are opening this episode? Because the blog that was published by the chief HR officer at Microsoft, Amy Coleman, this is available public blog, and she actually wrote down a few things which I want to read out. So here it is in her own words. Today, we are eliminating around 4,800 roles, about 2.1% of our global workforce, as we focus our people, investment, and energy on the priorities that will keep Microsoft positioned to deliver for our customer in a fast-changing industry. The why is this. Our business is changing because the world around it is changing. The way technology is built, deployed, and used is transforming faster than at any point in my time here. Our customers' needs are shifting. The business models that serve them are shifting. And that means the work itself, what we do, where we focus, and how we are organized has to transform too. All that goes on. And I'm going to again resume a quote from there. And then she is very specific and direct in her blog. So again, resuming what she said, I also want to be direct that the roles eliminated today are not being replaced by AI. At the same time, what is true is that AI is changing how work gets done. Some of the tasks we do every day now can be automated, and that means we all need to keep learning, keep building new skills, and keep adapting as the work evolves. Our customers are navigating this same shift, and they are counting on us to help them through it. We can't do that well unless we are doing it ourselves. This comes down to two commitments: making the decisions needed to drive differentiated customer value and supporting the people affected by them. Unquote. Now, important point here is this, Jamie. What I'm observing in all the latest rounds of layoffs that are happening across the industry is there is now a narrative being told that, hey, it's actually not because of AI. Okay, we need capital flow or whatever we need to do. Yeah, the work is transforming, etc. And in this case, the lot of layoff that happen is impacted in the Xbox organization. But I'm seeing that as a trend, right? Many places there was in the first couple of years there was a lot of talk about, oh yeah, AI is changing, AI is eliminating jobs, and that created a lot of backlash. And now the corporate leaders, industry leaders are trying to actually walk back on that narrative and rather saying that, nah, this is just changing business and everything is fine. It's not really because of AI, because otherwise, the backlash is not going to help, right? I mean, the adoption is going to be impacted. So that's really you will see going forward. Also, I would see that those kind of stunts that many companies pull, that okay, hey, I'm going to lay off everybody 90%, I don't need them, AI is automated everything, those are not going to be around, I think.
Yeah, I look at this as companies are evolving. They're going to be laying off people. They're going to be hiring new people. Are part of these things related to AI? Yeah, in some extent. But I think the bigger thing, and you pointed out already during your discussion here, is that companies are changing with the roles and how things are modifying with the business. So there's always going to be quote unquote layoffs because you don't need that specific role anymore. And how has that function potentially adapted or changed, or even I don't want to say eliminated, but just not relevant anymore because things have changed in the business and the way that we do. So I see this as something that we're going to continue to see. It's no different. I mean, companies have been changing their business practices and equipping their their resource needs appropriately based upon those needs. So I see this as basically status quo. Whether or not some people want to point to, oh, it's AI. I think you're always going to get that in today's world, but a lot of these things don't correlate to just, oh, it's elimination of jobs or roles because of AI. I think it's changing or adopting as they adopt with business practices.
Yeah, totally.
So let me get into maybe one of our next ones. This is going to be a combined, somewhat of a topic as I walk through this. So I know I mentioned last week that there were announcements of the next generation of the OpenAI models, that being the 5.6. And we talked about it last week that there's models that are announced: the Soul, quote unquote, the Sun, Terra, the Earth, and then Luna, the Moon. That's the way I kind of like to think. That's literally what they mean, but it's still the three categories, right? So these models have now been released, and if you remember what I talked about last week and last week's episode, OpenAI announced the models, but no one really had access to them because they were being reviewed by the government. It was close. Only a core people had it. Well, they're out now. I actually used it for a couple of different things. I used it in development because I wanted to see how it worked as compared to Opus 4.8, which is pretty much what I've been running to quote unquote context engineer, vibe code, whatever you want to call it. And it's also now part of the ChatGPT world. All right. So breaking this first part down, because I'm about to morph into something that literally hit last night, as I alluded to during our opener. These 5.6 models, they're really good. And I want to stress that again. They're really good, especially the 5.6 Soul, which is the premier headliner model, whatever you want to call it. The model itself is so good as it relates to coding, but it's more than just that. Like if you take a look at the model itself, it's good, right? But since OpenAI has been working behind the scenes to make these models more knowledge worker friendly and the things that they can do, those are all things that are part of the model. So the 5.6, what's interesting now with 5.6, especially again, when I look at Soul, there's multiple levels of reasoning even within that model. Everything from what I'm going to call, or what they call light to medium to a max mode, but they also have this ultra setting. What's interesting about the ultra setting is it's actually running multiple agents behind the scenes, so you're actually getting 4 times the power, comes at 4 times the cost as well in terms of number of tokens that it uses. But this is basically a important step. Why? Because of what was released last night. So you heard us talk about the super app that OpenAI has been developing. That super app for lack of better terms, has been Codex. If you haven't really been using Codex over the last 5 months, 4 months, you've really been missing out. The Codex itself has a really good harness underneath it, but now with these more capable models, and it's not just the thinking capability of the 5.6 Soul, but it's this knowledge worker capability, computer use capability, its ability with its overall harness, bringing in image, tying back into all these plugins. It's really a game changer of a tool in a system. Now, here's where things get interesting, and let me just show a couple of things first. So I'm going to share my screen because the models are good. The models are actually better than good, but when you combine this notion of the model with the pricing scenario around it, well, that's where things get really interesting. So let me just share a screen. I'm getting challenged by a couple things within the new StreamYard. So it's about to come over. So what I'm sharing, or about to share, ever so slowly, is actually, I don't know if everybody has seen this website. It's called Artificial Analysis Intelligence AI. You can see the website, artificialanalysis.ai. This actually takes all of the various different metrics and measurement, and it consolidates it. So it's a really good, what I'll call third-party analysis of the models. Now, hopefully this is big enough, but what I want to draw your attention to, the best model is not GPT 5.6. It's actually Fable. But look at what's next. It's GPT 5.6 Soul in Max. The point difference between this in terms of the score on how well it does across all these different things, there's 1 point difference in that. I would argue that you're probably not going to see a 1 point difference, even if you're doing, context engineering. The next set of models are 5.6 Soul, 5.6 Soul in these different thinking modes, or like how hard it's going to think. So even in the high mode, not this max, you're still at 56 as compared to 60 with Fable. Equate that to where Opus 4.8 is. 4.8 is tied with the high version. So basically, you've got 3 versions of 5.6 Soul that either tie or beat out Opus. All right. So even that alone is interesting. But let me take you down to cost.
This is a good chart.
So
Shows all kind of models actually where they stand.
yeah, and sorry, this is all right. So this is cost per intelligence index task. So basically, this is doing a task. So it breaks down the cost of using a model for doing something. So obviously, this is blended based on what the task is. But let me draw your attention. The most expensive tool, or the most expensive model, is Fable. $2.75 on average for a task. Look at what's next. It's Opus. Look what's next. It's Sonnet. Are you getting the hint here? The Anthropic models are the most expensive to run. And if I keep on going down the list here, where is GPT 5.6 Soul Max? It's $1.04 per task. Equate that to Fable, $2.75. That's almost, whatever the math is, 2.8 times more expensive. And if you remember what I said on the score, the Fable was 60 and the 5.6 Max Soul was 59. So for 1 point less in terms of score on its capabilities, you're getting something that is almost 3 times less costly. So I look at this and my reaction is, holy crap, we now have a model that scores almost as good as Fable, and it's nearly 3 times less expensive.
Yeah,
Now,
this is crazy. What do you think, Jamie? Do you think this is a price regulation by OpenAI, or is
oh,
it too?
it totally is. This was a shot, in my opinion, fired across the
Mm.
bow at Anthropic. And
Mm.
Anthropic, I've never seen them do this, but on the same day that the 5.6 Soul was really released and available to folks, especially with what I'm about to tell you with the new codex. It's actually called ChatGPT Cowork, but Anthropic actually raised their token limit on their paid plans. And
Mm,
I don't think they would do that lightly. I really do believe that they've done that based upon looking at, the score against Fable and the cost per task. So it'll be interesting to see where Anthropic goes in the next couple of weeks to month. Are they going to release Fable, uh, their next Fable .1, and make today's Fable less expensive, or are they just going to blatantly reduce their costs? Because
mm.
if I was a enterprise organization that had a large agreement with Anthropic, I would be seriously thinking very hard at what I'm spending with Anthropic, because I could get a model that's as good as Fable with 3 times the less cost. So, like, why would any CIO, why would any executive at a company want to spend 3x on something where you get exactly the same output or capability from a model like OpenAI? Now, we've been touting this, and I know we've said this multiple times. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You should have an architecture that you can swap in and swap out different models, because I guarantee you 3 months from now we'll be talking about maybe a new open source model that beats these, or Anthropic will come out with their next iteration. And oh, by the way, I've heard rumblings already that GPT-6 maybe not too far away, as in maybe by the end of the summer.
I
So
know. I was thinking, Jamie, that you sound like already outdated because there are already rumors about GPT-6 now coming up.
yes, exactly.
Major rumors.
So I say all this because what's important here is, yes, this 5.6 model, but let me then talk about the next thing that OpenAI did literally less than 24 hours ago. So if you've been following along, obviously Anthropic kind of led the way with uh, Claude Code, great harness when it started, and then they came out with Cowork, great tool. Again, the notion around Claude Code is that it does more than code, which is why they came out with Cowork. It's got a harness that spins off multiple agents to do different things. All right, that's great. But OpenAI and a bunch of other companies literally did the same thing. So OpenAI came out with Codex, which up until maybe about 4 months ago was okay, but it wasn't that great. It wouldn't beat out, in my opinion, what Claude Code or Claude Cowork could do. That's all changed. The model underneath Codex, along with their improved harness, along with their capabilities for tying into computer use and leveraging the browser, connected into various different plugins to get work done, is not only a game changer, but in my opinion, actually beats out Anthropic at their own game in terms of what Claude Code or Cowork is. All right, fast forward to what happened yesterday. Codex, in my opinion, it's really good, but it scares off a lot of people because of the name code inside of Codex. So I almost said Anthropic. What OpenAI did yesterday is they just announced what is, in my opinion, their super app. So what they did is they changed not only ChatGPT, but also Codex to be now focused on work. So they're now calling it ChatGPT Work, which is the new name for Codex. Codex is now powered by GPT-5.6. So the whole notion here of not what coders can do. I mean, this is people that are doing vibe coding or context engineering have been using Codex for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. But this is now focusing in on the knowledge workers. What's interesting is if you look back maybe 2 months ago, OpenAI did change some of the UI on Codex to make it focused on what your task is. So they were trying to make it, well, okay, if you're focused on not coding, but we're doing like sales work or marketing work, they changed some of the UI on what was Codex, but it's still it's called Codex. So what they changed now is the whole UI constructs on this. So let me just show you two things really quick. So Codex is no longer Codex. This is Codex. I'm running this on my local machine, and if you notice, it's called ChatGPT Work. If you still wanted it to be called Codex, I could change it, and it changes into Codex, and it changes some of the UI and the things that I want to do. So if you're a knowledge worker, notice how things changed on me, right? Um, so if I'm a knowledge worker, I'm going to keep with the work piece. So I'm not going to run through this. Maybe I'll run a demo, do a snackable lab that we run more on, this new ChatGPT work. But it now has the focus of what I want to do as a user. Now, if that wasn't enough, the the chat experience through ChatGPT is changed as well. And let me just drag this over. Hopefully you can see this now. I'm on the web through ChatGPT Plus. I don't know if this is coming over too well, but it now has a toggle switch if I wanted to work in just the typical chat or if I wanted to switch over to work. This then gears me into using more of those built-in plugins and skills. What's really cool is that this then transfers over into the quote unquote Codex environment that sits on my desktop. And also, if you notice here, the picker, so I could change what model, Sol, Terra, Luna, or go to 5.5, and then the effort, I have all of those different capabilities. So all those things that I just showed you on the scoring are available to me right here now as a paid user. I believe they rolled out the 5.6 also into non-paid, but I think it's at the Terra model.
Yeah. Yeah,
Might be
it's
wrong.
only it's not the Soul, but the other two that are available to the free users.
So again, I go back to this is a game changer in the way that things are running inside of ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT chat and work. And the other thing too is I could actually use my cell phone, my Apple, to remote control my desktop, which they released a month ago, and I know we mentioned it, but now it's integrated into this whole new world. So I know I spent a little bit more time than I probably wanted to, but I think it's important because it kind of spells out now. OpenAI is fully committed to this super app. They've got really great models. It compares against Fable, at least on the Soul Max, and it comes at a much less cost. So if I equate all that, if I'm a knowledge worker, I can now do things on my computer directly using this ChatGPT work connected anytime, and I can access it through my phone no matter where I am. So this is game changing. If you hadn't used Codex, or if you haven't downloaded yet, go out and download ChatGPT Work and start using it. You're going to just totally change the way you literally work, no pun intended, by using these new models. So anyway, yeah, big changes with the way things are actually being run.
Totally, I agree that I think OpenAI is making a comeback, and really, I would say, catching up pretty much there at same as at par with Anthropic in terms of the coding. They're actually consolidating, right? For example, they also actually closed another project. Earlier, they closed, Sora, and now they've closed another project called Atlas, which was actually browser that they had launched. So they closed that as well. Basically, they're consolidating their focus and going after the enterprise piece.
Yeah, and that's you mentioned Atlas. Just to really quickly highlight on that, Atlas, was there a browser, agentic browsing that's rolled into the Codex. I keep on saying Codex, the ChatGPT work. So it's got the new and improved Atlas, although it's not called Atlas anymore. And there were things that were Atlas was good, but it was still missing certain elements. But now it's fully Chrome extension capable. So all these great things are just directly embedded into this new cowork. So anyway, with that, let me bring back the slide deck. The next thing I wanted to talk about is really where AWS. We talked about things changing and morphing. So AWS is actually resetting some of their capabilities. So I don't know how many people are actually using Amazon Q Business, Kendra. What they're doing is they're actually moving that into a maintenance mode, which basically means no new customers onto that platform. It'll still be out there for some time. This is also affecting some things inside of SageMaker. That's going to move into maintenance mode. Things like Clarify, Ground Truth, model monitoring, and just the overall debugger. Those are going into maintenance mode. Whether or not AWS will bring something into it, but ultimately this kind of this signals the fact that companies should think about their forward-looking progress and what they're going to do as far as supporting business. You always got to think that the models and tools are going to change, but it's about how is your infrastructure, how are the things that you've developed, can you easily, what I'm going to call plug and play onto what you've already built. And you don't want to just be solely focused in on one tool set and or one model. It's about how do you create an architecture. So this is a great example of that. We talked literally just 2 seconds ago about OpenAI removing Atlas. How do you change? Same thing with AWS and the things that they're quote unquote resetting as an enterprise.
Yeah, and continuing on that theme, Meta is also trying to actually reinvent things. Let's talk about a couple of launches that came out from Meta. So Meta launched what they call as Muse Image. It's a model for image generation and even video generation as well. Image generation is available. Video generation is in the preview, not available widely right now. But it uses multiple features. It has features like it's basically a agentic image generation. So it can use the search to find the best images on the web and go after that and bring that in. It can actually use the coding tool. It can connect, it can integrate with their coding model, it can execute the code, create some specific effect in the image generation. It can use self-refinement, it can do the image editing, and there are some pretty remarkable effect that they're showing that you can actually use to clean the images, right, or remove the objects from the images, etc. So really, really good. This model actually looks really good, Muse Image. The only thing is that, it obviously, since it is Meta's, you can use that in the Meta AI or Meta apps, but it can also integrate with Instagram and others, right? So, you can actually use somebody else's image, and that raises some privacy concern because you can integrate. You can actually, when you're giving the prompt, you can say, okay, take this, and then you can refer to some other specific image available online and say that, okay, change that, etc. That is a little bit problem because it by default assumes that consent is given. So unless you are a minor own account, your images from your accounts can be referred by this new image model, and that raises some privacy risk. So you have to opt out. By default, it is opt-in. The other thing that Meta also launched is actually their coding model. So Meta Muse Spark 1.1, and they also launched Meta Model API. So not to be left behind, Anthropic and OpenAI, Meta is trying to actually come back. And these are some of the models that have come out from the new super intelligence lab, right? Which is Alexander Wong and the team is actually trying to lead. It's kind of a reset that Meta has tried to do because, those Llama models were not really getting that much traction. They were falling behind. The whole open source, leading the open source space was also being questioned, etc. And that they reset this whole thing with super intelligence lab. And these are some of the products that are coming out from that super intelligence lab. So Muse Spark 1.1 is a coding. They also want to actually not just consumer space, but they want to get into the enterprise space. So that's why the Meta Model API has also been launched in public preview. You can use them for the enterprise development work as well. So those are also available to be used. Now, of course, that's Grok is also there from SpaceX AI. Yeah, the name has changed for the overall company. So SpaceX AI Grok 4.5 was also released. Pretty good. If you look at the benchmark, when it was released just this week, all good, but GPT 5.6 was not out there. So if you compare, those benchmarks still seem outdated, although it was just this week news. But 4.5 is also pretty good. But here's the thing, I think it's not just about a company launching. I feel that Grok might actually create the most advanced model. Is still their adoption is not going to go beyond a certain level. I think they have already peaked in my view, and which is what the charts are also showing, that their usage is not growing beyond, and that's why they've also acquired this company called Cursor. This actually, the model has been developed in conjunction with Cursor, and that's why it's not initially available in the European Union yet. But these are some of the coding models advances happening from other players other than the OpenAI and Anthropic as well.
So, I have a slightly different take on the Grok or the Grok 4.5. I still don't know how to call it. Is it XAI or SpaceX AI? I don't know, but
Now
I'm just
SpaceX
going
AI.
to call it X. So, what's interesting is, yeah. So, what's interesting is Elon has opened up, what is it, Colossus, to other players to use that hardware. So does that mean that SpaceX is moving away from building models? I don't think so. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come out with 4.5. But you still need to think about that. What is their major directive to be a frontier model company to develop models, or is it to sell compute power because they have a lot of it? And I think a lot of it goes back to what you just said. Their adoption is not as great, obviously, as Anthropic or OpenAI. All right. Now, that being said, what I also heard Elon kind of point out to say is that we don't want to be the frontier model company, which scratched my head a little bit. They're like they want to be the the tool set that you need to use to run your everyday agents on. So think about that. If you're using something like Fable or 5.6 Soul to be your orchestrator, but the everyday workhorse is Grok 4.5. And what's interesting is if you look underneath the covers, they tuned 4.5 for development work. And rightfully so, from what you pointed out, they've been working with Cursor because think about it this way, Cursor has agentically doing that. So they rolled that information into the 4.5. So it's an interesting thing to kind of consider on the capability of 4.5, and it popped up in the scoring that I showed you before. It wasn't at the top, but it was like maybe 5 or 6 down from the top. But its cost is a heck of a lot lower. So I think what, and again, I don't propose to be inside the head of Elon, but I I believe that what they're trying to go for is no, we're not going to be the best model, but what we do cheaply, and we do it very well for coding. And with their coupling with Cursor, that's a really strong proposition. So anyway, well, time will
Yeah,
tell on the uptick and if people really
yeah,
do it
and I feel that, Jimmy,
that
that
way.
Grok models themselves are
A
actually
couple
pretty
of other
strong.
quick things here.
Yeah, what
Yeah, we
Elon
had
has
per
done
click.
actually is pretty good, like in terms of establishing those infrastructure. He got a lot of compute, and it's not that he didn't want to be. I think it just because of his political flirt, I think it has created a backlash. I think it is just that you can see that, like, the lots of Tesla's inventory actually everywhere. I think it is only that the model themselves are actually pretty good. It's just, I think, the adoption is impacted because of the political considerations.
Yep, agreed. So, as I was mentioning, Hugging Face models are now on Microsoft Foundry as managed compute. Just real quick, it's a one-click deployment. It leverages these open weight models from what is on Hugging Face. So these are things where it makes it very quick and easy to use. You're not paying for the model; you're paying for the compute, and it enables things like private networking, observability, all the things that are of interest to enterprises that are leveraging Foundry, for that matter. So it basically turns these open models into governed enterprise deployable options. So you're not doing the roll it yourself from everything. You're getting some of the added benefits of quote unquote what is Foundry.
Perfect.
Sure.
Good to be, I think, back in the flow, Jamie. I was also out a couple of weeks on vacation, and back to the word of action in AI. I think we'll look forward to how the other companies, particularly Google, is going to be responding to some of these announcements. Right? They have been, I would say, a little bit behind in terms of getting the news, but I'm sure they're not working on it. Like, basically, they're not keeping quiet on it. Like, in terms of work, they will be back soon too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm fully anticipating the 3.5 Pro to be announced or released as
Soon as well.
probably, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Perfect. I think we're just trying to keep it short in time within. So hopefully we'll be back next week with even more content and more launches, as Jamie said.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye, Jimmy.